Daylight peeked between the trees as the Kinderwolves ventured down a sunlit path. The Zeta paced themselves while waiting for their leaders, who followed just a few steps behind. Navy glanced back as he guided Soulcroft, her blind steps making him pause to let her catch up to them. Suddenly, the sky grew darker as a loud burst shook the ground. The forest erupted with a destructive force, drowning out the world in sudden darkness. Time seemed to stretch on yet remained still for a moment. Motionless, the darkness rose with sudden noise as the ground shook beneath Soulcroft's body. She felt her muscles ache as she tried to sit up, making her groan from the sudden pain. She heard the loud crunching of wood and the rustle of leaves as Lone helped lift a heavy weight off her body. "Soulcroft, thank goodness you're okay," he said as she coughed against the dust in the air. "Lone, what just happened?" she said in a panic. "I have no clue, but we need to find the rest of our group. Stay close and follow me," he said as he took the lead. She used her nose to search the scene, faintly making out the scent of Nano. "Nano? Nano, are you okay?" Soulcroft said as she quickly helped unbury him. "I'm fine. But the forest, everything is destroyed." He panicked before shaking the dust from his fur. "We just need to hurry up and get out of here. Let's keep moving," Lone said while listening to the impact of falling stones. They roamed as the broken terrain made it hard for Soulcroft to travel, her lack of vision making her stumble through the broken forest. Just behind the destructive echoes, they could hear a weak howl nearby. "I think I found someone. Hey, over here," Nano called as he noticed Ram limping between the shattered trees. "Lone. Nano. Soulcroft," he barked while limping up to them. The sky just exploded. "What are we going to do?" Ram panicked. "Just stay calm. What do you see?" Soulcroft asked. "Nothing. The Sky Palace is gone. So is the forest. There are no paths we can take," he said breathlessly. Soulcroft sniffed the air, but the dust and ashes only made her cough. She tried to take a few steps forward, but her paws were burnt by the flaming embers of the explosion. She listened carefully and heard the call of other wolves in the distance. She released a howl over the destructive sounds around her in response. "That was Navy. Come on," Nano called with Lone helping Soulcroft walk through the destruction. She felt a cold draft of wind with each step as she blindly walked the broken paths of the forest. The wolves remained huddled as the forest path opened into a devastated field. Debris fell from the sky with plumes of smoke that captured the glow of the distant flames. The Zeta monitored the scene with sharp eyes while they took careful steps down the broken trail. "This doesn't look good. We might need to head a different way," Lone said cautiously. Shattered fragments of the Sky Palace were buried into the ground, leaving the scene littered in elven structures. The Kinderwolves ventured through the wreckage with cautious steps as they observed the unfamiliar scene. Nano peeked around a broken slab of stone and noticed a faint glow in the distance. "Lone, Ram, come look at this," Nano called quietly. Lone and Ram quickly caught up and peeked at the strange sighting. A survivor of the Sky Palace was laying injured with floating stones around it. It struggled to heal its wounds as it noticed the group of wolves draw closer. It looked worried as they came into its view. "Hey, what happened to the Sky Palace? Your home is scattered all throughout the forest," Lone asked the startled elf. "We really messed up. We couldn't contain the corruption. You need to protect yourselves before it comes for you too," Adelphi said weakly. "What do you mean? What corruption?" Lone asked. "We still don't know, but it began to spread throughout our cities and overwhelm our defenses. There's no one left to stop the outbreak. We lost our protection, and now we can't keep you safe. You all need to protect what's left of your home before you lose it too. Run away and don't get captured," Adelphi warned as his spiritual light faded. The scene grew dark as he lied unconscious. "Hey, but what about you? We need to get you out of here," Lone said, but the elf only jolted awake with a sudden dark surge. Darkness filled his eyes as his body was overwhelmed by a strange power. The floating stones around him plummeted to the ground while he struggled to maintain control of himself. In the distance, many eyes appeared in the twisted shadows that surrounded the group. The shadows carried a pulsing wave that smothered the area in a dark, ghostly aura. From deep within the wreckage, they could see a faint shape appear into the open as it stood up with a dreadful aura. It locked its sharp gaze onto the group of wolves with surging power that outlined its frame. They just won't back down. You guys need to get out of here. I only have one last chance to fix this, Adelphi said as he forced himself to stand defiantly. He threw back his hand and released the last of his light to pull out his bladed staff. The light returned to his body as he used it to charge up a powerful surge of energy before releasing it into the ground. A wave of light threw back the Kinderwolves, filling the scene with light and wind. The Kinderwolves quickly fled as they tried to escape the battle between the elves. Soulcroft tried to keep up, but her paws tripped over a fallen tree, making her stumble and slip across the wet grass. She lost her footing as the cold touch of water engulfed her body. She sank into the cold depths of the lake, making her panic before kicking and digging for the water's surface. Reaching for air, she blindly tried to find the shore, but her panic only made her sink faster. Her body vanished under the waves as hidden figures noticed her struggle and leapt to her rescue. She helplessly stirred and kicked as she exhausted her strength trying to save herself. She then felt a foreign weight knock against her side and scoop her up before carrying her to the surface. Her body was stretched along solid ground with Gallum crouched next to her with drenched fur. Navy appeared with worried steps as he quickly checked on her. Soulcroft, thank goodness you're okay, Navy said as he helped her sit up. He cradled her in his arms in a moment of worry. That was close. Good thing Gallum saw you running the other way, Navy commented as Gallum shook the water out of his fur. Glad I could help. I could barely see through all the dust in the air. This place is in ruins, Gallum admitted. The rest of the Zeta arrived, glaring back at the forest in a panic. Navy, we're in danger. The elves have fallen to some strange power. I don't have time to describe it. We just need to get out of here, Lone admitted with worry. Every route is either blocked by fallen stones or destroyed completely. We'll need to find a new path home. Come on, Soulcroft, shake off and let's go, Navy said, making Soulcroft nod. She broke away from him and got on her paws before taking a few shivering steps back. She shook the heavy water from her fur, making her stumble from the effort. As she weakly stood up, she hugged herself as her body shivered from the cold air. She opened her eyes and for a moment, she didn't recognize what she was looking at. Her eyes skimmed over the group of wolves, gazing at their dark figures in the shadows. She took a step back in fright as she noticed their strange outlines staring back at her. What's wrong with your eyes? Soulcroft, do you feel different? Navy asked, backing away as well. I don't know. I think. Is there something wrong? She said in a panic. No, don't be afraid, Navy pleaded as he stepped forward. It's just that your eyes are sort of creepy. He held his eye contact with her, making her look away with another step back. But so are yours, she said, pointing at him. No, that's just not right. Your pupils are glowing and now you say you can see, right? Navy pressed on. Why, yes, I guess. I don't even like seeing, but I can't seem to turn it off. Soulcroft whined, looking around the dark, gloomy scenery. Does that mean you can see those dark waves too? She asked with worry. For a moment, Navy got caught in a trance as he stared at the pulsing energy that surrounded them. Both alphas stood for an uneasy moment as their surroundings grew distorted. Their collars sparked with a dark surge as a powerful bolt sent them both flying in opposite directions. The dark surge began to overwhelm Navy, making him let out a snarl that carried on into a vicious growl. He trembled and snarled as he collapsed onto his knees. Navy, what's wrong with you? Soulcroft called to him, but he looked at her with wild eyes at the sound of his name. She gasped as she crouched down, backing away while he growled at her. Hey, what are you doing? Get away from her, Nano said as Navy growled distortedly. Soulcroft looked around herself trying to see what he saw, but Navy drew closer, fixing his gaze on her. Nano blocked her off as Navy stalked forward with a vicious growl that became distorted in the wind. The other Zeta quickly got to the defense while they tried to stand guard against their leader. Navy, what's gotten into you? snap out of it. Lone called, but Navy could only struggle with gritted teeth as his collar shifted with a dark pulse. Navy burst forward with blind aggression and slashed at the group with arcs of dark power. He overwhelmed Galum with multiple slashes before releasing a wave that threw him back. Ram tried to leap in, dodging Navy's attack while throwing hits of his own, but Navy quickly caught his face and released a blast from his palm that threw the Zeta into the distance. Navy drew his eyes onto the rest of the group with a harsh glare before launching himself forward. Lone pushed Nano and Soulcroft out of the way as he was hit by a slash and slammed onto the ground. Navy pinned the Zeta down and fastened his teeth around Lone's throat. Navy, no. Stop, he pleaded as Galum and Ram leapt back into the battle. Soulcroft could see Navy locked in a tussle of teeth against the three. His bright eyes were now blackened as he released stressful dark waves. We need to go. Nano panicked, hulling her away before she could make out anything else. Guys, leave him behind. We need to go now, he called after the rest who were still trying to detain Navy. After a couple of strides, Soulcroft could hear a growl that rolled through the forest floor. Nano and Soulcroft stopped as they waited for the others. They looked back and saw the Zeta limping with scars covering their pelts. The distant reek of blood made Soulcroft freeze as Navy growled behind his twisted aura. Keep moving, Lone called as he rushed out of Navy's range. Navy fixed his eyes on the group and sprang forward with a vicious snarl. He followed their every move, sending his patrol running as they fled from his dark pursuit. They seemed to shake Navy off their trail after a while, his paw steps nowhere behind them. Suddenly, they all skidded to a dead stop as a low, distorted howl weaved between the trees. Soulcroft felt her spirit lock in place as pure dread filled her bones. The others started groaning in pain, shaking their heads and blocking their ears with their hands. She looked at them for any sign of self-control, but their heads only darted around as if they couldn't make out where to run next. She noticed shadows stretch towards them while the darkness spawned more distorted figures that carried a dark aura. One by one, she watched her troops drop to their paws, snarling in defiance to the disruption of their soul. Ram looked one way before looking at her with sunken black eyes. Her pack was losing control of themselves as their bodies ingested the dark waves. Her body strained against the twisted frequency as her vision blurred in the stir of dark elements. A flicker from above caught her attention, making her aim her gaze on the moon just dimly glowing in the sky. It began to fade out of her vision, darkening the night as its glowing surface began to vanish in the shadows. Just as she thought she would pass out, a big rush of air filled her dry lungs. She released a howl as a long drawn-out tone of rushing wind that burst through the forest. Her eyes were filled with sudden power as she rose in the air with bright streaks that swirled around her body. Crystal shards whipped through the air as her body repelled the dark waves and fueled her with surging energy. Her light broke through the darkness as she stood defensively with her patrol, their eyes full of power that revealed the dark elves surrounding them. The lifeless figures loomed in their twisted energy as they targeted her patrol with their dark powers. The fallen elves charged forward with corrupted energy radiating from their palms, but their pursuit was cut short as spears of light pierced their dark forms. They were stunned by the blinding power as each shard exploded with a charge that crippled their movements. More dark elves appeared while Soulcroft wielded the crystal shards and launched bright streaks into the crowd, blowing them back with her own bursts of light. Each motion pelted the field with streaks of light until she gained a sudden rush of energy. The Kinderolves became overcharged with the cyclonic power and unleashed a large burst that rained spears of light into the dark crowd. The elves were pelted by the flying shards as they were stunned by the onslaught of energy. They collapsed and roared as they were crippled by the surging power, while others retreated into the shadows to avoid the radiant glow. Dazzling light surged around Soulcroft's body with a fierce wind that blinded her pack with raw power. The light returned to her collar in a radiant spiral as crystal shards surrounded her body. The wind and light from her strange power steadily vanished until her collar dimmed with a faint glow. Unaware of her actions, her powers faded as she collapsed on her side and listened to her own echo pierce the sky. The dark presence of the elves became muffled by the waves of her howl traveling into the distant forest. The waves faded and left the forest to fall into a dark, eerie silence as the dark elves loomed in the shadows. As if responding to her call, a stray pillar of light appeared in the distance, approaching the fallen wolves. Adelphi stepped forward with an extra surge of light that lit up the dark scene. He drew his gaze onto his fallen people that were taken by the corruption. Their haunting figures drew closer as they gathered around his brother, who glared at him soullessly from the center of the dark mob.